My comments are very much aligned with what went before, which doesn't surprise me. Years ago, on a Berkeley street corner, where telephone poles wore inch-thick paper vests of handbills and people walked hunched over and swiping at their screens, a graffiti spray-painted on the concrete slipped through my internal sensor. Who really needs a red wheelbarrow? Who indeed? What can William Carlos Williams' famous poem, taught and overtaught in so many English classes, offer to such a thoroughly postmodern world of teeming urban messages? Does anything really depend upon a red wheelbarrow? We might well question the question, and whether it is actually what's being asked. Isn't this bit of graffiti using sleight of hand to question who really needs poetry? What use are poems? And how seriously can we take the people who write them? The problem is, as W.H. Auden writes in his 1939 elegy for Yeats, that poetry makes nothing happen, surviving in a world separate from the practical world of politics and business. As the philosopher L.D. Laird told the Aristotelian Society in that same year, outside the sciences, there is no information. The poets may beguile you or exalt you, but they cannot tell you anything. Yet, as Yeats declares, all the most valuable things are useless. And he complains against a practical modern temperament. They prefer the stalk to the flower, and believe that painting and poetry exist, that there may be instruction, and that love, that there may be children, and that theaters, that busy men may rest, and holidays, that busy men may go on being busy, discounting things that have a worth in themselves. As he writes in the Song of the Happy Shepherd, the human truth of the scientist is dead. So he urges us to dream, dream, for this is also sooth. But what if all that is wrong? What if poetry does make something happen? This is the essence of Williams's famous declaration that a poem is a small or a large machine made out of words. If a poem is mechanistic, physical, and it does work, then it's practical, of this world, and defensible in a world of materialism. The problem is that in the philosophy of science and early psychoanalysis, poetry was seen as deceptive, a lie, even madness, where sanity was defined as being aligned with the reality principle, and where knowledge was to be measured through correspondence to the real world. So Freud presents the artist's mind as a broken machine, and art as a symptom of that brokenness, and only the therapist mechanic knows enough to repair it. Jung, in contrast, saw myth and poetry as essential human activities that rooted civilizations in universal archetypal truths. Far from being disease, art was a cure for psychological, social, and spiritual ills. Well, is this all what Allen Ginsberg calls the boatload of sensitive bullshit? Can we truly believe that the arts might bring us to ethics and help us step outside of our inside and connect in common humanity? Think of Marinetti's merging of futurism into the Italian fascist movement. Think of Ezra Pound's epic celebration of autocratic strongmen in the cantos. Don't they spring from the same dark creativity that invented the atom bomb and the death camps? Creativity was also exercised by the ancient Assyrians to decorate their homes with the peeled and painted skins of their fallen enemies, and by the Nazis to fashion lampshades of the skins of Holocaust victims. Gladiatorial battles to the death in the Roman Colosseum is really a kind of dark creative theater. The gardener who nurtures the flower into bloom and the scientist who midwifes the nuclear death blossom are different in scale and outcome, but related in kind. To believe otherwise seems mere fantasy, perhaps. But consider this. Strangely enough, the best evidence for the ethical effect of the arts comes not from advocates for humanism, but from contemporary neuroscience. which reveals that these truisms about the ethical power of the arts are located in brain structure and function. Creativity is essential to the human ability to connect with others and to the pursuit of social justice. Contemporary neuroscience supports that the arts trigger mirror neurons in the brain in the same way that those neurons spark when we see those we love in pain and feel the pain in our own body. Arts don't train us in sympathy, in which we feel for one who suffers, but in empathy, where we feel their pain inside our minds and bodies. Neuroscientists call this a homospatial process, where we feel we occupy the same location as other people. Being able to think metaphorically like this, like the Beatles, I am you, and you are me, and we are all together, is what creative empathy is. Empathy creates creativity, and creativity is essential to the imaginative act of empathy. So, I'll be a little bit fast here. I'm just going to go quickly and say that all this is supported through the humanistic school of psychology, which basically argues that the kinds of self-actualization that psychoanalysis seeks to achieve is actually what happens in the creative process. Further studies show that creativity, not just apex creativity, but daily creativity, telling stories to your children, gardening, reinventing your life after a divorce, not only reduces the stress cortisol levels in the human body, it mitigates loneliness, puts the brain in a relaxed state of flow, lowers the oxygen demand after heart attacks, slows your heart rate, reduces blood pressure, boosts immune responses, reduces chronic inflammation, slows down cognitive and physical decline, lowers our experience of chronic pain. Maybe creativity is not a disease. Maybe, as Wallace Stevens puts it, it's a cure of the mind. Perhaps it's true that, as Williams writes, it's difficult to get the news from homes, yet men die miserably every day for lack of what is found there. And perhaps it's not the whole boatload of sensitive bullshit to believe that so much depends on a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. Thank you for being here. Poetry Matters.